Hi everyone, welcome to the final mentor information video for the year. This is a special extra one, not that we've kept the programme at all this year with all the changes. This final one is about getting your trainees through their last 6 weeks of this PGCE. So we're very much focused on, I'm calling it the Blitz, where we're going through these last 6 weeks. What can we catch up on? Where have they got some gaps? What can we do in this quite short period of time, but also that's a lot of lessons to make the changes, which is great. So a quick introduction, as always, my name's Branagh. I'm the mentoring lead for the PGCE programme here, for the ITE programme here at Sussex. I've done all the other videos this year, so if you're a new mentor to us, welcome. Nice to meet you. Okay, this is to be watched before the subject-specific session that they all start around about the 19th of April. So if you can watch this before, it's probably better. If you're watching it after, it probably doesn't make that much difference. But they're to be watched and attended in conjunction with each other. A little note, little caveat, if you have a part-time trainee or a school direct salaried trainee, the year is slightly different for those trainees, very different for the part-time trainees. So please do be sure to connect with your subject tutor and link to the handbook, because what I'm talking about isn't necessarily specific to those trainees. So what are we going to do in this session? So discuss the need to audit the needs of your trainees for this final 6 weeks. If we just go through and think, oh, we'll just keep going as normal, observe you each week, give you feedback each week, and then suddenly we realise 2 weeks before the end of May that, oh, crikey, we haven't done enough on that. It's too late. So now is the time, just after the PPPD, to think, right, okay, final push for the end. What gaps can we fill? What are we going to go, oh, don't worry, that's as good as it can be. Let's worry about this bit. So it's kind of a triage. You know, that's fine. Your assessment's fine. Leave it like that. Whoa, we've got to work on your behaviour management. Okay, so we've got to do some prioritising. Quite difficult to do, but that's what we've got to do for this final 6 weeks. We've got to get them ready to get their qualified teacher status, do their reflecting on professional knowledge assignment, as well as becoming a newly qualified teacher for the vast majority in September. And that's really the priority, isn't it? So by getting them ready to be a newly qualified teacher, we should be getting them ready to get qualified teacher status and pass the RPK. And then I'm just going to guide you very quickly through the PPPE form. It's really very similar to the others. We just want summaries though, and it's very much led by what the trainees give to you. As always, it's a thank you guinea pig this time rather than a dog. We are enormously grateful for all your hard work, dedication, kindness, commitment, you name it, we're grateful for it this year. It's been unbelievably stressful at your end, unbelievably stressful, and you've carried on with our trainees, and we are beyond grateful, so thank you. And we really look forward to working with you through the rest of this term and definitely into next year, because next year will be different, it'll be better. Okay, so where's your trainee at the moment? So looking at their strengths and targets. So where are they? They've either stayed where they are, thank you, and you've allowed them to continue to finish their training within your school, as most of the trainees across the country have done so. We always hoped we'd be able to move them on properly to second placement. Didn't happen, so thank you for working with us with that. Or your trainee has been able to move on, and if your trainee was only doing Key Stage 5, post-16 provision, or had a very limited curriculum, we had to move them on, didn't we, to make sure that they could qualify for qualified teacher status and be compliant. Now, each one has its benefits and drawbacks, yeah? So they don't matter now. It just doesn't matter now. We are where we are, and we've got to look at each of our trainee and not let them continue to go, yeah, but I didn't get yes, yeah, but I didn't get that. It's gone, it's done. This is what we've got. This is the 6 weeks we've got. What can we do to make it the best 6 weeks ever? So that's the angle that we've got to come at for them. But we need to be aware, really aware of what we're working on so we don't waste our time. Now, some subjects are in a slightly different situation to others. So the practical subjects, drama, music, DT and science, we haven't had a lot of chance to do any practical. As a science tutor, I'm very aware of this. So if we can, whatever we can for those subjects. Let's try and get them some more experience of using equipment, hopefully getting the kids to use more equipment as best as we can. And if your school can't, for whatever reason, please do get in touch with the tutor and say, what can we come up with? What creative ideas can we come up with for these particular trainees? Maybe if they've got an afternoon where they're not teaching on your timetable, we might be able to get them to be a guest somewhere else. So please do get in touch if that's the circumstances for your trainee. So if they've stayed at the same school, how do we broaden their experience? It's going to be different from trainee to trainee. Some trainees have already had a change in timetable, which I'm sure they thought wasn't a great thing at the time, but actually now they're kind of, oh, I'm quite glad they moved my timetable. I get a chance to teach different classes that fix my needs. But for others, you've had to keep their timetable the same. So please do consider how you can broaden their experience. One idea from Pat that I work with, one of his trainees is going to be observed by more different teachers to get different kinds of feedback that might help them move forward. So they've kind of got, not in a rut, but they're like, can I hear it in a different way? So that's one way of possibly moving them on. But this is something that you should be discussing in your subject-specific groups. Where they're going to talk to you about your subject and how we can move the trainees on in your particular subject. And the same for the ones that have moved on. They've got to build new relationships really quickly and show progress with those pupils. So again, how do you get them to do that? It's almost like with that one, well, what do we not worry about? Yeah, we're really worrying about getting them good with behaviour, whole class behaviour management, kids moving forward, differentiation, whatever it is. That individualised learning that comes with getting to know kids really well is possibly not going to happen for that trainee this year. They're all likely to need to focus on whole class behaviour management because they've been out for a while. But we're presuming, and based on the trackers, that they're okay with marking written assignments because that's pretty much all they've been working on during lockdown, and hopefully their planning is okay. There shouldn't really be gaps there. So consider their priorities, look at your PPPD and come up with an action plan. So part of the action plan will depend on what stage your trainee is at, because they're not all the same, are they? And some of you are highly experienced mentors and you've seen this variety that we can get year in and year out. Some trainees really independent, some are a little bit more needy, some are very creative, some struggle with their imagination. So it's never a level playing field. So it doesn't hurt to remind ourselves how far they've come and the disruption that they've had, but also how well they've dealt with the disruption. Let's focus very much on what they can do rather than they can't do, because that's what qualified teacher status is. It's not saying, show me the worst that you've done in the year, whoops, that's really awful, or your worst isn't that bad. It's about showing how you can meet the standards and how you have met the standards. I mean, consistently in this last phase, but we're not looking for, oh, that's awful, you can't pass because you've done that, all right? We're looking at how they've progressed, not how they've fallen. So think about where they've come. There they were all the way back in September, back in induction. They built up to their 8 hours. They were face-to-face all the way up until Christmas. Then we had the online learning where I think most of them, well, all of them in my cohort, if I look at them, did a brilliant job of adapting, you know, standard 5, adapting to changes. Standard 8, how did we deal with whole school issues and how did we deal with safeguarding? They've done more than any other trainee when it comes to safeguarding and adapting their practice and using technologies. And then back to school, I mean, woof, the poor things, constantly changing direction. Back to school, how well did they adapt to coming back? Again, let's look at the positive. How well did they cope rather than, well, you've missed a bunch of that, right? So let's err on that side of positive. And then here we are in this last phase. They're going to be going through that last bit. So April, let me get my little jewelry thing. So when they come back after Easter, this is this push. This is the blitz. Okay, so how do we get them ready to properly sign them off for QTS? So where is your training? Remember this from last term, from last year. So they should be, it's April and we're looking at the April, May, really reflective now. They should be able to look at their own lessons and go, oof, that wasn't so good, but I know why, and I also know how to fix it. So it doesn't matter if things go wrong, it's just identifying what went wrong and how do I fix it. But again, they should also be able to go, I know why that went well. And sometimes that's much harder, isn't it? Going, oh, I know why it went well, actually. It's because I planned really well. So if they're reflective, that's great. They're on track for being very excited in anticipation phase of becoming their own teacher in September. Rejuvenation is a tricky one. We might feel more like that after the Easter holidays. Not much rejuvenation right now, is there? So be mindful that they should come back. Ooh, my arrow's gone funny. Rejuvenated and well planned after the Easter break. Now, this one here. So are they unconsciously incompetent? That's not good. That's the worst possible scenario. They're not good and they haven't got a clue why. Hopefully no one's there. If they are there, they should be on a support plan, okay? Consciously not so good. Some of them will go, I'm still not very good at that. Oh, I need to get better. But if they're still needing lots of your advice with 6 weeks to go, it's not looking brilliant. We've got a lot of work to do there. Most of them are probably here actively working at a skill, but it still needs quite a lot of thought and energy. That's all right. It's hard, but I'm trying. So their trackers say, I'm okay, but it's hard. Who said learning to teach was easy? Nobody, right? So a lot of them are probably still there. Some of them, and I can certainly think of some people in my tutor group, are so good. They need very little nudging, and actually that's quite hard to mentor because you're like, oh, what do I tell them? How do I get them to be better? And that's when you've got to go, right, just ask for the moon on a stick, right? I want more creativity. I want more related imagery. I want you to start theming these lessons all around X-Men, okay? Let your imagination go wild in order to help them. So most of them are consciously okay in a lot of their bits. They're proficient, all right? They're unlikely ever to get to expert, okay? But just think, do they still not know why they're not very good at something? And this is where we had this one before. Most of them may have hit a plateau. They need that rejuvenation over Easter to come back and go, oh, I know what I'm doing. Okay, now, can you start moving from mentor, which is very much a guide, a prescriptive guide about, okay, this is where you are. This is how I'm going to tell you to do it next. It's very much mentoring. Can you move to coaching model, which is sitting back a lot more and thinking, right, okay, tell me. You tell me. Elicit their ideas. You say to them, okay, so that's how that lesson went. I'm not going to say anything. I'm putting a 10-minute timer down here. You're going to tell me everything that happened in that lesson. And every time you come across a target, I want you to give me a strategy or a technique about how you're going to fix it. Yeah, so it's much more taking yourself back, getting it from the trainee. Now, some of your trainees are not ready for that, and that's perfectly okay. And they may not be ready by the end of by the end of the PGC. Totally fine. It's all right to stay in that supervising teaching all the way up to the end. But some of our trainees are ready to move on, and that's fine. So if your trainee is not ready to move on and they're not responding to any coaching techniques and you're feeling that you're not just mentoring, you're still carrying through, you must contact the tutor immediately, okay? We're presuming if you're not carrying them, and that's why they've passed their PPPD, right? They've met the standards, they're all right. They still need lots of help. It's okay to need help. But if they're needing so much help that really they're not starting to do things independently, we do need to put them on a support plan. And the deadline for that is the 28th of April. So be quick with that after Easter. If you think, oh, benefit of the doubt, go away at Easter. If they don't get better, let's hit them with the support plan in April, and that's fine. Remind them of the amount of work. So if they're still not getting what you... Apologies, pause there to get a glass of water. So if they're still not quite getting to where you think they should be, really unpick why you think it is. You know your gut, you know children, and whether you can tell now you didn't work hard enough on that. It's the same gut feeling, that sensorial feeling with a trainee. Do you suspect they're just not putting in enough time in the planning? Now, this has not been a normal year. There's nothing we can do about that, but it has meant for all of us more work. It has done. It's just what we've had to do to get through it. That also means more work for them. They don't get to work at normal trainee level. They've had to work harder too. And if they haven't been willing to put that extra time in, that could be where we've had some issues. So remind them, if they're saying, oh, it's taken me a long time to plan. Yes, it probably is. Yes, it probably is. But plan effectively, not just hours. Are they putting their hours in the right spaces? Are they working on the right bits? And that probably will need your guidance. Now, if they aren't moving forward enough, look again at your targets. If you're frustrated by looking again, oh, you're still not moving forward enough with that, look again at your targets. Are they really telling them what to do to improve? So let's look at the mirror a little bit for this and think, oh, my targets aren't really clear enough, or I'm not writing enough. If you've got a trainee that's stuck in the mud, stagnating, not moving forward, sometimes you need to give them more. All right, so write in a more verbose style with really directed targets for them. You might want to observe them more, give them more. I know normally we don't recommend that, but in this blitz period, more is better. Okay, so key priorities for this term. We've got to get them ready for qualified teacher status, help them decide where they've been successful and the evidence that they can use. So moving them into this 6-week phase, let them be really clear at the beginning. This is where you're good. Just keep going. Just keep going. We don't need to do much to that. But this is where you need to focus your energies. Okay? We've got to get them ready to be a qualified, so QTS, helping them with their evidence, telling them that's a really good example of a lesson. That's really good kids' work. Grab it, right? Evidence grab. But more importantly, really, because we're all hoping they'll get QTS, and if they weren't going to, hopefully we'd know by now, is this getting ready for newly qualified status, right? They need to be independent in the classroom to get ready for September. We're going to need to make some pragmatic decisions. That the normal way that we'd finish a trainee off in these last 6 weeks or so is to look for outstanding lessons, showstoppers, Ofsted special day lessons. For some of our trainees, that's not going to be appropriate. And actually what we need from now are just consistently good. Don't worry about them having each week they've got to do something amazing. Let's just get it consistently good, because that's what we need to be as an NQT. We go in there, we've got 20 lessons a week, we've just got to be good enough. And for some of our trainees, that might need to be the message. Don't worry about whiz-banger lessons. Just get the kids working, just get them behaving, looking at compliance. Okay, it might not be the most enjoyable experience for the trainee or the kids, but we just need to make sure that they are meeting all the standards and everybody's moving forward with regard to the kids. So the priorities are slightly different. Okay, so don't worry too much about, oh, I wanted them to end outstanding. Ending good is good enough. Okay, let's just get them good across the board. So don't worry about very good in one arena, so they're really good at planning, but their assessment is below met. We can't have that. We want all our graphic equalizer buttons to be at the same level, so at least met or good before we start worrying about the very goods, really. So this blitz, this final 6 weeks, they must plan and deliver their 12 hours a week. No negotiation on that, on the Sussex lesson plan. Now, if you think they would benefit from something a little shorter to reflect more of the NQT experience, get in touch with the tutor and we'll do it on a trainee by trainee basis. But for now, because they weren't doing really in-depth planning, all of them, for that online stuff, we need to see that they can do a full detailed lesson plan as much as possible. Still got to be observed every week, especially if you're getting them to be observed by someone that isn't you. Please make sure they use the Sussex pro forma, the observation pro forma. It really helps the trainee if it's not, once a week just on some scrappy bits of paper, properly done. Focus on the necessities. Look at your action plan. What are we drilling down into? Don't worry about giving some targets that seem oh goodness, that's like a September target. That's like an October target. Don't worry about that. If they need to go back and see the Senko again, they go back and see the Senko again. If they need to see the safeguarding lead, they go back and see the safeguarding lead. Plug those little holes that might have popped up during lockdown. Okay, and focus your mentor meetings on these essential gaps. Let's get them all up to Met or better. Okay. Now, coming into the last bit, so filling in the PPPE. For those of you that aren't a new mentor, you've been doing these all the way through the year. Slightly different for the PPPE because it's our last one. So it's due May the 28th, which is the last day of the placement. We really do need it on that day because we've got the May half term after, and then we start the RPKs on Monday, June the 7th. So we've got to have them in, look at them before we do the RPK. Now, we should step back and look holistically when we're writing the PPPE. How far have they come? And that's really important because all these PPPs have been quite close together because we've given extensions because of lockdowns and the pandemic, other bits like the pandemic. The C and the D, there was nothing in between them, right? And they won't felt like they made much progress because they went from online to face to face. So let's step back, look at the whole year and go, oh yeah, actually, look how far you have come. Yes, you have got better. Yes, you have been meeting that standard consistently. All right. So in the strengths, we do need to build them up for their NQT. This is our second year of another bunch of trainees that have fragmented patchwork training. Brilliant training by you. I hope we've done a good job, but they're in and out the classroom, in and out the classroom. They've definitely been with kids more than last year, though. They've had consistent contact with children, be it online or face-to-face. So it should be better than what we wrote for last year, I hope. Let them know what they do well. Do big them up. We need them to go in with confidence into their NQT year. And with the targets, think very much about somebody coming into your department, all right? So imagine they're coming to work with you. What would you want that newly qualified teacher to work on? So look at your trainee and go, okay, this is where you're good, but right, if you were going to work with me, what would I really want you to be working on? And focus those targets about that so that they're really useful for them to move on somewhere else. Now, we don't necessarily want those targets to be more opportunities to do this. If you could write that in the blurb bit, I'll talk about that a bit in the sec. So more opportunities to talk to parents isn't really a target about their pedagogy. That's just something that was missing. So please don't waste a target on missed opportunities. Let's do it about their actual practice, okay? And keep the opportunities for the wider blurb. So before you fill it in, the trainee will need to show you, obviously, they'll fill in their tracker with their final statements about their evidence. Be driven by them. Do look at their statements in the tracker and think, are you really that good? So do use the statements that are on our webpage and you can download it from that link. And again, you'll find this PowerPoint on the website along with the video. So there's an example of standard 2 where they're talking, there's the language. I regularly provide pupils with an opportunity to reflect. I actively promote engaging and effective methods that support students. So it's a different kind of tone between good and very good. The front page looks exactly the same. Please don't forget to do the tick. This is the most important tick of the entire year. Okay, that's the bit that tells us that you're recommending them for qualified teacher status. They will hopefully write a lot more in these reflections than they have done over the year, but it will be more holistic and reflective over the whole year. It must have specific examples of evidence in there. Just statements like, yeah, I did do teach good, is not okay, all right? I've taught lessons well over the year, is not okay. It must have examples, because if they don't get it right here, what are we signing them off for? That we need to know, well, what lessons did you do that in? What kid did you do that with? They also need this to be able to do their RPK, okay? So if they thought about it for the PPPE, specific examples, it helps them with their RPK. Now, some of them are too generous, where they're saying how brilliant they are. You need to check for that, okay? We need a realistic perspective on it. And some are too pessimistic, so, you know, big them up. And that's where evidence is handy. No, you definitely did that. Look what you did with that year 9, okay? Now, this one, for the PPPE, you really shouldn't be ticking insufficient, I'll just drag it, insufficient or partial. Because if they're there, they're not passing. So if you think they're in danger of being here by the end of May, you must do the support plan in April. Okay, we need to move them to Met. We're in big triboules if they're still in insufficient or partial by the end of the course. So please, let's get them to a stage where those are not being ticked, okay? We can't really have them in this final one. Now, mentor feedback. So that one of these last sections of the form, it's all about you. Now, this is their last document of the year from you. So let's make it a stonker. Let's make it long. Let's make it detailed. Let's make it personal. And I've got a really nice example here from one of my ex-trainees. And it's so detailed about how lovely they were and how great they got on with the kids. Now, at the end of this, that bit of the, what's it called again? Mentor formative feedback. This is where you could write about missed opportunities. Okay, now they haven't here because he trained outside of the pandemic. It's from 2 years ago. So you could write, there are some missed opportunities this year, not X's fault. You know, be sure to do more parent phone calls, all those things that might have been missed, but they're not their fault, so they're not their target. The targets come in here. So here's examples of strength, lovely, detailed, personalised areas of strength. So do take some time to have a look at that when you finish the video. And again, even though it's the same trainee, right? That many strengths, but still this many targets. So developing their targets, saying what they need to do even better will really help them for next year. Here's what not to do. This is one from 2 years ago. This is no use, sadly, at all. Okay, subject knowledge. What about their subject knowledge was good? What was good about their resources? What was good about, I mean, it doesn't actually say that kids learn anything in those. I'm not really quite sure, excuse me, how they pass the standards. Differentiation, please don't do it like this. It's no use to anybody. And that's taken from a final one as well. So please don't do it like that. The professional tutor will sign it. If you know that there's a bit of a delay between you filling it in and your PT filling it in, please get it to them a little bit earlier or give them a good old nudge. Okay, so that's that. That's that talky bit. So what's coming up next? Subject-specific meetings from let's see what the earliest one is the 20th. Okay, so the 20th of April. So the week starting the 19th, that's when those subject mentor meetings take place. They're all via Zoom as usual. They've already, your invite has been sent and the invites are on the next slide as well. So if there are any problems with the links, get in touch with the tutor, not with me, and they'll sort it out for you. Please do come to those meetings. We've had amazing attendance this year, especially considering the nature of the pandemic and everybody was just scream exhausted for the last one. And we do understand that. But to form a community of mentors, we all need to be there. They're not training. They're sessions where we all get together as a group of colleagues who are doing the same stuff and we talk and we discuss. And if you're not there, nobody can learn from your expertise or experience. We all make a contribution, and the more of us that turn up, the better those meetings are. So please don't think, oh, I can just watch it after. I don't send mine on, if I'm honest. I want everybody to turn up and be a part of it because that's when they're at their most successful. So please do come to them. Your input is valued. People need you to turn up, basically. And the last thing that we want from you desperately is to take part in our RPK interviews the week of the 7th of June. They're all going to be by Zoom. You don't have to travel to campus. We pay the cover. I think information has already been sent out about that, but there'll be more coming on that as well. It's a lovely thing to do. You'll learn a lot, but for those of you that haven't done them before. Subject-specific sessions, there you go. There's our contacts. And then as usual, there's the key contacts. Claire Stevens, Partnership Coordinator. Please talk to her about payment. She's the one that knows all about payment. Apologies there's a mistake there about November. Don't worry, I'll get details out about that. She's the one that deals with payment, okay? And then as usual, there's Claire Senning's email if you've got any questions to do with partnership. So thank you once again. I tried to keep that just inside the half an hour. I really appreciate you watching these, and I hope that it helps the subject-specific sessions so they don't have to go through things like forms, because they've got much better things to talk about. I've enjoyed doing these videos this year. Thanks ever so much for watching. I'll change them all for next year, though. So I hope to see you all at some point face-to-face. Wouldn't that be awesome? But all the best to you all. If you're watching this before Easter, enjoy your Easter holiday. If you're watching it after, I hope it was really good. But take care and see you all soon.